Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com and the Pewter Report podcast. It is a Tuesday edition of the show, our second of the week. No duh, that's how days work. And we are going to talk about the latest practice for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, while also opening up the curtain, taking a little peek to see what is going to go on when the Bucs have their joint training camp practice with the Miami Dolphins taking place tomorrow. We also got a big announcement for tomorrow's show as well. A big-time guest is joining us to talk about the Buccaneers and the joint practices a little bit, but it'll make more sense when we do make that announcement. And we'll talk about Baker Mayfield today, Luke Goedeke, some of the guys we had at press conferences after practice. So a lot of fun stuff to get into on today's show. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is my fellow colleague from PewterReport.com. He's been out at practice with us the last couple of days, Bailey Adams. Bailey, welcome back to the show. How are we doing?
I'm doing well. For it being day 17 of training camp, I think it is. Doing all right. Ready for the preseason finale and ready for the regular season to hurry up and get here.
It's funny you mentioned day 17 because I think I said yesterday, I was like, yeah, I put on my Instagram story, day, ... I don't know. And then, of all people, Luke Goedeke this afternoon, I don't know if that's where you picked it up from. He's like, yeah, we've been out here 17 days of practice. And I'm like, damn, he's really on it if he knew that there was 17 days. But yeah, it's they call it at this point of summer like the dog days of summer. And from the heat perspective standpoint of just it bearing down on you, I guess it's more the bear days of summer. But the heat really like kind of being annoying and a nuisance. Outside of that, I wouldn't call it the dog days because there's been a lot of high-profile action. There's been a lot of great storylines that have kind of sprouted from this training camp. And one of the newest things really is that we learned is Graham Barton, as we have a comment from Lucas Pettis, a YouTube channel member, a Pewter Report channel member. So shout out to you, Lucas, for that, who says Barton equal Pro Bowl. I think Lucas is also alluding to the news that Todd Bowles confirmed today that Graham Barton officially is starting at center for the Bucs this year. Bailey, your thoughts on a little bit of news coming out of practice?
Yeah, I think we knew that. No, it was good for him to.
You're right.
Yeah, to officially announce that. I think everybody, it was kind of a foregone conclusion, but we're getting to that point where they start to make decisions about the roster and the depth chart and all that stuff. And I think he's had a pretty good camp. He's had a pretty good preseason so far. And, yeah, excited for the first-round pick to be officially the starting center.
Yeah, it's about time. We kind of saw, as Jeff the Champ says, worst kept secret. Yeah, that's true. The only thing that really, I guess, was kind of masking it a little bit is that the Bucs were kind of continuously switching out Graham Barton and Robert Hainsey. And I understand, like, you want Barton to get his feet wet. You don't want to throw, too much at him right now. I mean, I think we're kind of learning that with our new intern, Isaiah, as well. Like, you don't want to put too much on a newcomer's plate. But Barton really seemed up to the task. There were some concerns at one point or another about his kind of overall snapping ability and making sure that the shotgun snap gets to the quarterback, or in this case, Baker Mayfield. But that didn't really become an issue too much after the fact. So I guess we can pivot in this way, sticking with the offensive line. Now that Graham Barton is starting at center, what does this mean for Robert Hainsey? Not necessarily like his future with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but how do you feel about those clamoring for Hainsey to be a starter at guard along the offensive line? Obviously, you have Cody Mauch at right guard and then Ben Bredesen at left guard. I understand some of the clamoring, but is it the right move for Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I think it's something they could explore. I think it's something that We haven't seen Hainsey at guard, so it's kind of interesting to see everyone wanting that so badly. And I think from the Bucs standpoint, I don't see that it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen just because of, kind of what we've seen in the past where they want to make sure their backup center is healthy. Like they don't want to risk not having. And the only thing I will say that could be an added wrinkle to this is, Hainsey will be the backup center, but Ben Bredeson also has center experience. So technically,
Yes.
if you wanted to give Hainsey a shot at playing guard and see if he's, the better fit for the guard position, then you move probably Bredeson as a backup guard and backup center. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like something that we're necessarily going to see, but I wouldn't mind seeing them kind of giving that a little bit of play just to see, their options.
Jeff the Champ, another YouTube channel member, thank you, Jeff, says, I think they should give him a shot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So I think part of the reason why I'm a little confused why everybody wants Hainsey to be starting left guard is Ben Bredeson has been pretty solid, at the guard position. This isn't, at least yet, or at least from what I've watched, I haven't seen Ben Bredeson kind of go the same route that Matt Filer and Aaron Stinney did. Of course, last year's version of Aaron Stinney, not the Super Bowl winning Aaron Stinney. So I don't understand all of this calamity about the fact that Bredeson should be removed from his starting position. Now, I think another reason why Hainsey is probably best suited for center, and while Bredeson does have that history, if you move Hainsey into the starting left guard position, let's just say something happens to Hainsey early in the season, and then middle of the year, and I'm not saying like out for the season or something like that, but then middle of the year, if Hainsey is out and then something happens to Grant Barton and he's got to miss a game or two, well, then who's starting at center and who's starting at guard? Like it's almost the trickle down effect where we've already seen the Bucs kind of thin along the offensive line. That's why Elijah Klein was playing like 3 or 4 different places, and some of the tackles that have been in place, I just don't really think they're even practice squad, worthy of a type of player. I think it's important to kind of, even though he's a backup player, preserve Robert Hainsey, even though it maybe doesn't 100% give the best potential for the offensive line. It at least gives you security for the O-line, which may end up being more important when you just talk about overall depth.
Yeah, and I think really like what we've both mentioned at this point, but he's never played guard in the NFL. I don't know that he's really even taken, I don't know how many reps he's even taken there. He was a tackle in college and became a center in the NFL. So yeah, and he stepped in for Ryan Jensen when Jensen went down, and that's been the history. He's been at center ever since. And I almost feel like, Ben Bredeson's done a fine job. And at this point, if at any point they need to remove him for whatever reason, like they did with Filer last year, I've seen enough from Elijah Klein to kind of wonder, all right, give him a shot. I mean, he's a rookie, but I've seen enough so far to where I don't think, it would be that big of a drop off. And I think he's a fine backup at both guard spots while you have Hainsey as your backup center.
Elijah Klein kind of seems like the ace in the hole. It's like when you're playing, or not playing, like if you watch Fast and the Furious back in the day, it's like, all right, when is he going to hit the Nas tank? When is the Nas tank coming out? And then bam, you finally kind of pull the plug on it. I think that's where the Bucs are at with Elijah Klein at the moment. He's taken great steps. He's looked good, but he's not fully polished just yet, I think, to be an every game starter this season. And you know what? There's no problem with that. And also, I mean, let's look at this Bucs offensive line right now. And they were pretty solid in pass blocking last year. I know we always kind of knocked them for the run game, and understandably so. I mean, they were in last place over the last 2 years. But Tristan Wirfs just got a contract extension. Outside of that, Barton is a rookie. Bredeson is on a 1-year deal that is not expensive at all for the Buccaneers. Malk is on a rookie deal, and Luke Goedeke is also on a rookie deal. We can talk about Luke Goedeke in just a moment. So, outside of like left guard, where it's been kind of a moving target over really since Ali Marpet retired, which again was not expected. Like that kind of hit Jason Light out of nowhere. outside of left guard kind of being a moving target, the Bucs are really solidified along their offensive line to have these guys along their roster anchoring for quite a while. So if there's really just one question, I think that's a pretty good issue to have if you only have to worry about one player and it being the left guard position, especially when you have Klein available and potentially ready to go. And then, as we know with Jason Light, he drafts offensive linemen like every single year. He drafted 2 this year with Barton and Klein, and obviously, Goedeke's season before, and the year Tristan Wirfs is back in 2020. So he's always replenishing that offensive line. There's been different degrees of success, but overall, again, as many people have been saying, in Jason Light, we trust. So speaking of one of the guys that we are trusting with Jason Light and what he decided to do, is Luke Goedeke, who we spoke to today, the starting right tackle. There's been one interesting comment that Luke Goedeke said, and it was kind of revolved around a jealousy or an anger that Tristan Wirfs got a contract extension. Luke Goedeke's not even eligible for a contract extension just yet. He's only going into his 3rd year, and he's had one good season as a starter. So I don't know. The question was just kind of, I don't know. It was a little bit leading, in my opinion.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I never even heard this, so I'm not sure, but I think he referenced something that Baker Mayfield might have said on the radio, and maybe
it was Baker like Baker said this. Baker said this about you. How do you respond?
Yeah, and so I didn't hear what Baker said. I didn't hear the exact wording of it, so yeah, I don't know, but it was funny kind of just hearing Luke's response, because Luke is, I think, generally a funny guy, and he takes everything in stride, and is just always down to clown a little bit, and. Even after that, someone was like asking him, because he said he wants to be a great player like Tristan Wirfs, and that's something he really wants to focus on doing, wants to build on last year. And then I believe, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Kevin O'Donnell, I think, from Fox 13, asked, like, you want a contract like Tristan? And he was like, I mean, that'd be nice, but we're not really there yet. But yeah, I mean, that kind of goes back to kind of wondering maybe after this year. I know it's something that Josh Capo has advocated for a little bit, is that the Bucs are maybe be proactive with some of their extensions and get them done earlier before they hit free agency. And if this is the case, and you lock up Luke Goedeke this coming off season in 2025, the year before his rookie deal ends, and then maybe they draft a left guard, then you're looking at a really solidified young offensive line. So whether it's a rookie left guard or if Klein is the guy to step in at left guard, you've got a really young offensive line that you have control over for a few more years.
Yeah, and I don't think many teams across the NFL can really say that. It's a very difficult thing to accomplish, and all the picks have to pan out too. Like, you can keep drafting guards and tackles year in and year out, but if every other year they suck, well, then you're kind of still back at square one. So, that's another testament to, Jason Light for being able to figure out these guys. I mean, obviously Goedeke was very much a work in progress as a rookie, but then they kicked him out to tackle, and, it's kind of been smooth sailing ever since. So let's transition from the offensive line to that running game a little bit, Bailey. What have you liked from the run game, both in the preseason and, in practice over the last couple of days, and can they sustain it moving forward in this preseason game against Miami, and then obviously for the regular season?
I've loved how much space the offensive line seems to be creating. It just seems like the lanes. Is
that because you're a UCF guy? You're all about the space, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Space U. I think there's been more space and just bigger running lanes for these running backs to hit. Both. More so probably in the preseason. The running periods of practice aren't always the most illuminating, I guess is a word there. But I think that we've seen some success in practice. We've obviously seen it in the preseason games that the lanes are there, and especially in the preseason, what we've seen from Sean Tucker and Bucky Irving, this guy on the screen right now, is that they've taken advantage of that space. And I love what we've seen from Bucky Irving so far in that he's got the speed, obviously, but I love his ability to change direction. He will see a hole and then he'll hit that hole very quickly. And then if there's something else to cut back to, cuts back. He just is very, very shifty. He bounces off tackles. And, we've seen that in just, I guess, probably maybe 10 carries in the first 2 games combined. But I've loved what we've seen so far from him. I've loved the strides we've seen from Sean Tucker. And I'm excited to see what Rashad White does with this seemingly extra space in the run game this year. And as far as whether or not they can, sustain it, I guess we'll see. I hope so. I think part of what the appeal of Liam Cohen's scheme is less predictability. Baker Mayfield talked today about how versatile it is, and I can't remember. I think it might have been Baker that also said how, or maybe it was Luke Goedeke that said how many different looks they have kind of keeps the defense's eyes, off kilter. They don't know where to look because they will run all of these plays out of, the same looks. And I think that part of that will, help this run game be less predictable than it was last year.
Yeah, that's a really good point because there's so many guys in motion, and we've seen the Bucs kind of perform a lot of end arounds and fake end arounds. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. I think I'm all right. Because even like Dave Canales, we would see an occasional end around, but you knew it was coming because it's like the only time that the receiver would go into the backfield. Like they hardly ever, faked the receiver going into the backfield. And I'm not saying it has to be like college football where you have a guy in motion every single time and the quarterback has to clap and, everything goes. But, there are even times, and granted, we're watching from, 40 yards away, depending on where the Bucs are deciding to go on the field on that day of practice. But there have been several occasions where I'm like, wait, is this play action? Oh, wait, no, they actually ran it with Bucky. Oh, wait, no, it's actually a screen to Rashad White or like whatever the case is. So I think keeping the defender's eyes moving all over the place. Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to kind of play tricks on the defense a little bit to a degree. It's not all, showmanship too. There is a method to the madness. There is a reason why it is going on. And I really like what you said, Bailey, about Rashad White specifically, about his opportunity to run in this space. Because if we think about what Rashad White has done for the Bucs in his really brief time in Tampa Bay, like he's only going into his 3rd season, and last year was his true blue starting year because he played behind Leonard Fournette the season before. But what was great about Rashad White? Him as a receiver, his impact on the team as a receiver. Well, what happens when the running back is getting the ball in the passing game? It's usually, a little pass to the side, sometimes over the middle, not truly like distinct, refined routes the way that like you have to get the timing down with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. That's all a long way of me saying Rashad White is always at his best when he has space, when he has opportunities, because that's when he can truly really operate it. And you get that a little bit more in the passing game just by kind of design and, the game of football. Now, imagine if Rashad, who, yes, at times does have an issue of waiting a little bit, imagine if he does have that space to maneuver and he can wait on the offensive line to, push everything out of the way and get him rolling. Rashad hasn't had that just yet in his career. And if it's working for Bucky right now and Sean Tucker, we've seen what he's done so far in this preseason. Rashad White has got to be foaming at the mouth, getting ready to go because it's one of those like, I want what they got. And, he's going to be the one that's leading this team. So, yeah, I'm pumped for Rashad.
Yeah, and I think when you think about last year and the best plays Rashad White had last season, it's like you mentioned, it's some of those outlet passes and, the touchdown against Atlanta in Atlanta. There was a touchdown, I think, in Green Bay. I think he had another one in the playoff game against Detroit. Like some of his biggest highlight plays or longest touchdowns were, as the outlet receiver. And when he had space to work with, he could make guys miss and then kind of just run away from him. And he's not a guy that has like insane breakaway speed, I don't think, but it just was more so he would take advantage of the space that he had and kind of just get away from everyone. And yeah, I think if he had that in the passing game last year, that's great. And I think he'll have it again in the passing game this year because we saw one play today in 11-on-11s. he kind of ran more like a bubble route, and there was just the Bucs just didn't cover it. The defense didn't cover it for some reason, but
Right.
Baker hit Rashad on that bubble route, and he had the entire sideline to run. So yeah, I think we'll still see it in the passing game, but yeah, seeing him with space in the running game, I think is going to be a sight to see. And I'm sure, like you said, I'm sure he's very, very excited to get out there and do that. Maybe a little bit in the preseason game on Friday, but definitely in the regular season in a couple weeks.
Lowkey 3323 says Rashad has a scheme now, ladies and gents. ... in all caps. Watch out. Yes, I think people should watch out for what Rashad White can do this season. By the way, we got a super chat from Cuse number 44. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Cuse was on the show yesterday, a big time Sean Tucker fan. As Cuse 44 says, Matt, can we see Bucky and Tuck do kickoff returns? I am a full member, no more Quest, but please don't ever call Jim Brown James Brown again. I apologize if I did that. Of course, I do mean Jim Brown. Of course, arguably the greatest running back of all time. Jim Brown, no question about it. James Brown, good music too. But Jim Brown, what is James Brown? The godfather of soul, I believe? Anyway, James Brown, Jim Brown, the godfather of running backs. And he brought lacrosse to Long Island. He was a big-time lacrosse player too.
Okay.
Q's44, please in the comments remind me as well, the Syracuse movie about the Syracuse running back. It's Ernie something. I think it's Ernie Davis, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, my apologies. Jim Brown, one of the greatest running backs of all time. As far as Bucky and Sean Tucker doing kickoff returns, there's a really good possibility of that. I mean, we saw in the joint training camp practices, Bucky and Sean Tucker working together. I believe with the new rule, you have to have at least two players in that box getting ready to receive the football. So, if anything, I think Sean Tucker would be more of a lock to be in there if Bucky Irving's going to be running back too, but get a lot more reps at running back than maybe last year's running back too did. I think that's a great opportunity for Sean Tucker to get one of those roles. And then, of course, the other question is Trey Palmer, who's been taking care of the punts, but not all of the kicks, though he has done some kickoff returns. So I think for the Bucs, I mean, if they are going to keep Sean Tucker on the roster, why not put him at kick return along with Trey Palmer? Because you got the breakaway speed with Trey Palmer, and then you got the vision and the ability to make guys miss with Sean Tucker. And that first kickoff in the game against Jacksonville, Tucker came close to breaking it. He only had to break, I think, one other tackle, and he got absolutely smacked on the play. But I think there's some ability there for Sean Tucker.
Was that the same one? Because was that the one that started the Bucs scoring drive? Because on that scoring drive, he also had a pretty long return. I think he returned it nearly maybe to the 30.
I'm thinking of the first kickoff, but
the opening
second kickoff too, because they went so quickly down the field on that second drive when they tied the game up.
He's looked good on kickoffs when he's gotten the chance in preseason, and I think that's probably maybe the biggest attribute for this new kickoff format is you've got to have guys with good vision, and I think it fits kind of the running back skill set because with the way it works out, and there's obviously they're 10 yards apart, no one can move until they catch it. It's going to be like another run play basically. And you have the running head start as the return man, but to break one off, you're going to have to find whatever lane is open. And it's going to be a split second decision that running backs are used to making. So I think that'll be the case. And I know there is the desire to keep Bucky Irving healthy, especially if he's going to be a running back too and be involved in the offense. I still would love to see at certain points, see both Bucky and Sean Tucker back there as the two return men in the kickoffs, because I think that's going to be something that it's all going to be a work in progress for every team, I think, and it still has been in the preseason and it will be going into the regular season. But that's going to be a huge advantage if teams can figure out the best way to approach that, because it's so new. But if you can kind of exploit certain things and coverages or certain strategies behind it, you're going to have a head start on everyone else.
Very much so. And I think Jake Camarda, obviously the team's punter, but he does the kickoffs as well. He's done a good job of kind of like perfecting getting the ball in that proper area. Yeah, because teams can either take advantage of it and start with great field position, or you're going to force the team to kick a touchback every time, and you're starting at the 30. So you're getting, better field position than years before. I'm very excited to see which team is the first to return a touchdown on a kickoff, because it's a little bit of a historic moment with like the new rules and everything. It's not exactly, the greatest accomplishment of all time, but an awesome accomplishment nonetheless. The last thing I want to talk about with the running backs, and I floated this idea out to you yesterday, I believe. Obviously, Rashad White's going to be a factor, but the way that his game is kind of detailed, I don't know. I just have this feeling that eventually Rashad White is still going to be RB1 and be very important to the offense. But he's going to have more of a receiving running back, Alvin Kamara role, where still a threat to all the defenses. But in terms of like running in between the tackles, while Rashad will still do it, Bucky is going to be the biggest like factor in that area. I don't know how you feel, but I don't know. Something tells me we may be going down that road at some point.
I don't think I'd be surprised. I think just because of what Bucky's strengths have shown to be. I mean, he's shown to be a good receiving back. He was at Oregon too, but I think it is that tackle breaking ability and ability to bounce off tackles, the change of direction I mentioned earlier. And Rashad, I mean, I think he's improved as a runner. I think there's still improvements for him to make in the run game, but he is, I think, as running backs go, an elite receiving running back. He was up there among the top running backs last year in terms of receptions, receiving yards. I mean, overall touches too. He was involved in the offense a ton last year. But yeah, I mean, what he did with the ball when he got it in the passing game, he's going to always have at least some sort of role in this offense. And if it does kind of evolve into being, like you said, like the Alvin Kamara type, where then Bucky becomes the between the tackles guy, maybe that's the case. It's funny because Bucky's small, so for him to be the in between the tackles guy, you'd think he's going to be a bit of a bigger back, but no, I mean, it's just his ability and his skill set has seemed to fit for that so far.
He's bucking the trend, if you will. Shout out to JB, a Pewter Report YouTube channel member. Thanks again for that, JB, who says, I'm very excited for our run game. Anything better than the 32nd rank will make me happy at this point, with the
31st
crying emoji. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Bucs fans would be happy with the 31st, but yeah, I mean, I can see them. I think if all things work and best case scenario, I think the Bucs can be a top 10 running offense. I'm not predicting that. I think even if they get run of the mill, like 17th, maybe even 15th.
I was going to say, even if they're it's not great, but even if they're 21st or 22nd, that's a pretty significant jump.
That's all
last year. And last year they made a jump in terms of the average. I think I can't remember exactly what it was, but they still finished last. But there was some marginal improvement last year, especially toward the end of the year. But you want to see a bigger jump this year. And yeah, if they can get into the top 20 or top half of the league, I think that's a huge success for Liam Cohen. And then I'd already start to worry about Liam Cohen ending somewhere else as a head coach next year. That's kind of the cycle that you're kind of afraid to fall into.
Yeah, there were times last year where it almost just felt like the Bucs offense was like handcuffed. Like they were playing with one arm tied behind their back because they just couldn't run the ball. And you knew they had to be so pass heavy, and they still did what they did as a passing team. So this year, it's almost like you can exhale just seeing the offense being able to move it. Now they got both hands and they're, running wild out there, both literally and figuratively. And you know what? I did think about that too with Liam Cohen, where it's like if things work so well right away, is he going to be gone? And sure, there is that possibility. And every year there's turnover with coaches and things of that nature. But part of me also feels like Dave Canales just kind of got hot at the right time and found like the top opportunity at the right time with the Panthers firing all their coaches left and right. The way that Dave Canales, is, I think, very much a people person. Like he's able to motivate people, certainly, and not that Liam Cohen can't. But I don't know, like how many. And we can't even really gather this until much later in the season. But there were a lot of like new hirings last year where even teams that struggle aren't going to get rid of their guy after one season. unless you're kind of like the Carolina Panthers, where the Bucs may get lucky, where Liam Cohen does a better job than Dave Canales, but there's just not the proper fitting or whatever it may be for Cohen to get a new starting or a new head or a first-time head coaching job. But yeah, if that's an issue for the Bucs, it means that they had a good season, and it means that their offense is still in a really good spot. And then you got to find someone you would think with a similar play calling system to Liam Cohen. But we'll worry about that problem once we get to it. Bailey, you were talking about practice before. Shout out to Allen Iverson. Actually, no, we don't like the Sixers. But anyway, we will talk a little bit more about practice after we discuss our friends over at Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. There's so many awesome flavors of Celsius that you could have between the Galaxy, Astro, and Cosmic Vibe. I've had a lot of the Cosmic Vibe here at my apartment. Also a huge fan of the Arctic Vibe. That is my favorite. So there's so many great flavors of Celsius. Head on over to the Celsius store locator to find where you can pick up a Celsius near you. Just type in your address and it'll tell you the closest geographical location where you can pick one up. Could be a Walmart, health and fitness store, a Piggly Wiggly, a King Cullen, a Wallbounds, a Publix, or your bodega.
Bodega.
Well done, Bailey. You got highly complimented the last time you did a bodega. This one was just as good, if not better. So, yeah, once you keep going to your bodega, as Rectified says, mango passion fruit is the way to go. Once you keep going to your bodega and you know you love Celsius and you want more, you want to get it in bulk, you can get it in bulk over on Amazon, also known as Amazon. Once you go to Amazon, click on the subscribe and save, and you can buy it in bulk. Get that variety pack, fries, spice of life. Have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You're in charge. You're the captain. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. I know having a Celsius kind of gets you going, gets the blood pumping, gets you excited. I think Bucs fans and Pewter people will be excited because tomorrow we have a big time guest coming on the show. Going to talk to us about the roster cuts coming up, what was seen from practice that day with the Buccaneers and the Dolphins. So joining us on tomorrow's show on Wednesday at 4 p.m. is Buccaneers assistant general manager John Spytek. He is one of the right-hand men to Jason Light. He's great with player personnel. He's had his hand in a lot of the important and best draft picks that the Bucs have had over the years. We usually get to talk to him on the third day of the draft. We actually got to speak to him a couple of weeks ago as well as training camp has gone on. So we'll get his thoughts about the rookie draft class, some of the positions that might be most difficult with roster cuts. And so very excited to have assistant general manager John Spytek joining the show tomorrow at 4 p.m. So make sure you put it in your calendars, set up those notifications, and we will get it done. Shout out Jeff the Champ says, well done, Bailey, talking about your bodega. And yeah, well done to you, the Pewter people, for bringing it this show. And please bring it tomorrow with John Spytek. Got a couple of super chats to get to. Then we'll talk about practice and, of course, talk about the Bucs-Dolphins joint training camp as well. Thank you to Andrew Martinez for this $1.99 super chat, who says, what do you see out of Baker this year? I think Baker, and the big conversation that I think a lot of us have had is wanting to see consistency out of Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield has really put in the groundwork and the overall foundation with his top guys, which was already good last season. So it's not like, oh my God, like what happened to these guys? Yeah. But there is just a crazy telepathy that he has specifically with Mike Evans, where it's just bang, bang, boom, pitch and catch. He's finding Mike Evans all over the field. He's finding it with Chris Godwin too. He just feels, and maybe it's because he knows he's going to be in Tampa for at least the next 2 seasons, hopefully 3. He has a relaxed nature about him, but a motivated, like eye on the prize type of aura, I guess is how I will say. So Baker, I think, has been really good with the football. Not too many interceptions in training camp. He's finding guys. He knows when. So sometimes it's like, all right, this play isn't going to work. Let me just dump it off to the running back or whatever it is. But he's making all the right throws. He's hitting some good deep throws, and he just looks better as a quarterback with that chemistry with Mike and specifically with Chris Godwin. And he looks like a true leader. So I think, is he all the time consistent? Not just yet, but he's more along the path than he was a season ago. So I like what I've seen from Baker this year. Bailey, what do you think? How about yourself?
Yeah, I think the same thing. And the big thing is he could end up having a similar statistical season as he did last year. Really, I mean, maybe I think the Bucs would hope it's going to be a little bit better, and I think it will be better if he shows that consistency that he needs to come through with. Because think about a couple games last year where he had some stinkers, and I know Scott's written about this a couple times on PewterReport.com, and it's the early Falcons game, the one in Tampa. I think the one of the Panthers game at the end of the year, actually, the Saints game at the end of the year.
Yeah,
there were scattered games throughout the season where he wasn't at his best. The offense wasn't at its best, and a lot of them were early on, and they took a long time to find their footing under Dave Canales, I think. And Baker, I think, even said that today. He said we took longer last year than I think any of us are proud of. I think it was probably pretty frustrating for them for 11, 12 weeks of the season. They finally kind of got into it when that winning streak started. I think consistency is the key. And I think what really might help a lot with that, and what I'm so excited to see from what we've seen so far in training camp, is his connection with Evans has been, the same. And just like you said, there's a telepathy between them. I think his connection with Chris Godwin has strengthened a ton. And I think we're seeing a little bit more in training camp the benefit of Chris Godwin playing more snaps out of the slot. I think, that was a big talking point this offseason, was what that could do for him, and what he did in the slot in past years, in Bruce Arians' system, and what a return might do for his production. And I think he's just kind of been. We'll talk about space again. He's found a lot of space, and I think that's a big proponent or a big key for this offense, is that these receivers are getting open. They're being schemed open a lot, it seems like, and Chris Godwin's finding more space over the middle of the field in the red zone. My touchdown production could jump up a little bit. And so I think that could help with Baker a lot, because last year at times didn't really seem like it was, they were able to take advantage fully of Chris Godwin and what he can do. It was a lot of the Mike Evans show. But I think, sticking on that same page with Evans, getting better with Chris Godwin, and then adding Jalen McMillan into the mix, before you even get to Trey Palmer, K-Dot, and Rashad White in the passing game, all those guys. I think there's a lot set up here for Baker Mayfield to have an even better season this year, and the more consistent season that everyone wants to see from him.
Yeah, I think you make a really interesting point that I agree with, where he will be better, but kind of like what you said earlier about his numbers may end up being the same. Because, let's remember, last season, the Bucs did not have a drive to begin the game, like their first drive of the game, where they scored a touchdown. So there were many times last season where the Bucs weren't playing with a lead. They were either playing like a back and forth game where it's tied, or they're trying to catch up later on in the game. So I can only imagine if the Bucs come out swinging and go up 7-0, 10-0, whatever it is, with, I think what we all predict is an improved defense this year with Jordan Whitehead and, some better pass rush overall and everything that we've talked about this year. Between that and between an improved run game, Baker doesn't have to chuck it as many times as he possibly can, but because he has built-in chemistry with Mike, because it looks even better with Chris Godwin, that's big time. And then I had asked Baker today about what he thinks the strength of this offense is, and he said versatility, and he pretty much alluded to the fact that Jalen McMillan's here and Bucky Irving has arrived, and Payne Durham, the second-string tight end, has really taken a big time step forward. And obviously the offensive line is fixed. So, or at least we think is fixed. So yeah, there's a lot of positive things that I think we can all turn to and say, this is why, the Baker is going to be better, why he's worth the contract that they gave him, and why this team is going to succeed this year. But there were a lot of stars today at practice, Bailey, that
Mhm.
kind of stood up. And as your title said in the Camp Insider today, the stars look ready to go.
They do, yeah, and I think that's perfect timing given that they're having a joint practice with the Dolphins on Wednesday, and then having their first shot to play a little bit in the preseason game on Friday. I know Todd Bowles said he's not sure how long they're going to play. I know the starters played a full half in last year's preseason finale. Baker himself said, I think he said like he knows they're not going to play that much, so I
Yeah.
don't know that they'll play a full half this year, but I think it's coming at the right time. And those guys that I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Baker was. Today a lot of it was, getting the ball to Mike Evans, getting the ball to Chris Godwin. I know he had a red zone touchdown to Godwin near the end of practice. Finding Jalen McMillan, finding K. Dotton. They all kind of looked after kind of a little bit of a shaky or just kind of disjointed passing day on Monday. Tuesday today, they looked a lot more in sync and the offense looked a lot better. And then, kind of on that same point of stars showing up, Kalijah Cansey on the defense, I think was
Yes.
the star of the day there. He had a sack in 11 on 11s early on. They were in shorts and helmets, I should say, but they did a little bit of a one-on-one, period between the offensive and defensive lines. And Cansey had two very big wins in those. I think one time beating Cody Mauk, one time blowing right by Elijah Klein. So, yeah, I mean, Cansey looks ready, and he just came back from an injury. Like, he just came back to practice on Monday. So, good to see him back and at full tilt, and it looks like a lot of these starters are ready to go.
Yeah, I was a little concerned that Kalijah Cansey was heading down a road where we wouldn't see him until the regular season, and it's kind of like a replay of what happened the year before. Obviously, this injury didn't seem as significant as it was last year when he was in a walking boot, but obviously it was great to see Kalijah Cansey out there. Grant Barton had a great rep against Vita Vea. I thought he did a really good job. Then later, Vita Vea went up against one of the backup centers and annihilated, not Robert Hasty, but annihilated the center in 2 seconds. So nothing to be concerned about from Vita Vea and that front and that standpoint. And of course, as far as passing goes, Chris Godwin, a nice day. McMillan kind of like cooled off because the beginning of training camp, he was on fire. He was the bee's knees. He was the cat's pajamas. Everybody was talking about Jalen McMillan. Then he kind of cooled off a little bit. It wasn't like he was playing poorly. He just didn't have as many targets his way. But he's kind of picked it back up over the past couple of days. So, yeah, everybody seems to be trending in the right direction, which is really good to see. Poor Kyle Trask. He's had some issues with defenders in his face because there was the Anthony Nelson had the interception right in front of him, like as he was running after him. And Todd Bowles said after practice that Anthony Nelson had hands like Kevin McHale on the Celtics. And then today, Tyke Smith was blitzing off the edge, and like he jumped fully in the air. Trask throws it; it's broken up, and Trask later threw an interception as well, I believe, to Marcus Banks.
Chris McDonald, I think. Chris
McDonald. Yeah, it was number 36. I remember that. So not the best time for Kyle Trask. Honestly, I mean, I think we're all ready for the regular season, so it's kind of Baker's job and everything like that. Let's get to this super chat from Dre with the $2 super chat. Thank you, Dre or Dre, whichever one
Dre.
it is. He says, "You think Chase Edmonds is even cracking the 53-man roster?" Bailey, we'll get your thoughts first on this.
It'll come down to the numbers game. Obviously, I think there's a chance, if they're going to keep 4 running backs, I think he'd be the 4th at this point. I don't know that, TJ Williams or Ramone Jefferson have done enough to, make the roster as the number 4 running back over him. But he hasn't practiced since the first day of training camp. So I don't know. Right. I wouldn't confidently say that he's going to make the 53-man roster. I think at this stage, and I even asked you today, I was like, what happened to him? Because, there's no visible, you can't tell, he doesn't have, a boot on or anything. He's not on crutches. He's been out there every day. He's just been wearing his, his jersey and shorts and a hat. And he's been around and I guess maybe taking some of the mental reps or whatever. But I wouldn't count on him being on the roster. I think depending on what the injury is, it'd almost be more likely to see him start the season on IR so that they keep him around and keep him in the room, but don't have to use a roster spot on him. Other than that, maybe he ends up as a practice squad guy, if he wants to do that at this stage of his career, or if he wants to go out and try to find something elsewhere, maybe he does that. But yeah, I don't think the chances are very good right now, given that he hasn't practiced since, I think, July 25th or 24th, maybe. So almost a month ago.
Yeah, the TODD has been pretty vague about the injury of Chase Edmonds. Like a lot of guys, you ask him,
he said, I think, like the second day that he wasn't practicing, I think Bowles said, yeah, he's a little nicked up. He's just got to get some treatment. He'll be all right. And it's been a month.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's just today, I don't know if he's a little nicked up.
Right. And like even today, Greg Gaines was out for the second straight day. Christian Izien was out. And Christian Izien, is an undrafted safety going into his second year, fighting to make the team, let alone like the practice squad. And so I asked Balls, like, what's bothering them? He just said they're a little sore. But I don't think Christian Izien is in a spot to just be like, you know what, coach, I'm a little sore. I'm not going to practice today. But I understand coaches kind of like being vague and all that stuff when it comes to injuries. But yeah, it's been a true mystery with Chase Edmonds. I don't see how the Bucs can put him on the roster and say he's going to contribute to this team. Like, he's not Derrick Henry, he's not Christian McCaffrey or Saquon or whoever you want to say. Quan. I didn't even purposely try to do that. But I think there's no harm in putting him on the practice squad. Sean Tucker has played well. Like, if Sean Tucker has struggled in the preseason, well, then, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of reason to keep Chase Edmonds on the roster. But it doesn't even look like Edmonds is going to be healthy by the start of the regular season, unless he miraculously, now that I say it, it's going to happen, unless he miraculously comes out tomorrow with the helmet and shoulder pads. And it's like, oh, Chase Edmonds is good to go. I don't see how I just don't see how he can really contribute to the team. And I think the practice squad would be good for Tampa Bay because, I mean, is any team going to pluck Chase Edmonds off the practice squad and to the roster when he's not even healthy? So, yeah, I don't know. That's a very mysterious one. It's kind of good news for Sean Tucker because gives him an opportunity to, come back onto the active roster. And Chase Edmonds, he's just kind of got to rest, for the moment as he tries to get healthy. And if you want to rest, maybe have some relaxation, I recommend going on the Tampa Bay Bucs cruise.
We're on the Bucs cruise. Of course we're playing pool volleyball.
Hey, we on the Bucs cruise, of course. Anytime I say Tampa, they will say Bay. Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey!
We're on the Bucs cruise. Of course, I've got my Super Bowl 37 hardware. What do you think?
We're on the Bucs cruise, and of course we had a pirate night. Arr!
Arr!
That's right. Join the fun with hundreds of Bucs fans on the third annual Tampa Bay Bucs Cruise, which sets sail March 7th through the 10th in 2025 on the beautiful Celebrity Silhouette ship. This is a 3-night cruise that begins in Fort Lauderdale and visits Key West and Bimini in the Bahamas. Coming on this year's cruise is Yaya Diaby. That has been announced and confirmed. The A-Train, Mike Allstott, is coming as well. And last year's cruise also included Rashad White, Luke Goedeke, Kate Otten, Jamel Dean, the aforementioned Christian Izien, the aforementioned Greg Gaines, and also Jordan Whitehead is confirmed for this year. Also coming along, Super Bowl 37 MVP. He was on there last year. Dexter Jackson, Hall of Famer Warren Sapp, the voice of the Buccaneers, Gene Deckerhoff, Fire the Cannons. That was on impersonation. Just giving a shout out to his call. And also expected this year, there's going to be a guest appearance by none other than Derek Brooks. There will be a photo and autograph opportunity with the players, a Raise the Flags sail away party, VIP parties with the players, special player interviews, and one of the things I'm most looking forward to, a water volleyball challenge. There will also be Bucs trivia contest, fun games, and more. So reserve your cabin now on the 2025 Tampa Bay Bucs cruise, where drinks, including alcohol, Wi-Fi, and tips are all included with a $200 deposit per person. So to sign up for this, get your cabin, go to tampabaybuckscruise.com or give them a call at 1-800-975-7112. That's 1-800-975-7112. Shout out to the Tampa Bay Bucs Cruise. One more super chat from Dre, who says, I'm still rooting for number 45. Think he did great on kick return. I think that's Ramone Jefferson we're talking about, I believe.
Yeah.
Sometimes I got the running backs mixed up. But yeah, Jefferson got the team roster right here.
That should be right.
Yeah, that is Ramone Jefferson. I was thinking either Jefferson or DJ Williams, but it's Ramone Jefferson. Remember, he does have that history with Liam Cohen going back to Kentucky. I think between Jefferson and Williams and Chase Edmonds, one of them will end up on the Bucs practice squad. So yeah, still an opportunity for him for sure.
Yeah, I think so, and I think he'll get a lot of run probably later on in Friday's preseason finale.
Yeah, no question about it. But we don't have to wait to watch the Bucs and Dolphins on Friday because Miami is coming to Tampa on tomorrow for a joint training camp practice. A lot of interesting stuff with the Dolphins this week. Unfortunately, we're probably not going to see the two guys in this picture right here, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. It was reported earlier today that Hill is dealing with a little bit of a hamstring injury. So
I think, right?
I'm sorry?
Was it a hamstring injury or a hand injury? I think he had a brace on his hand. You might be right. I don't know.
Anyway, it doesn't look like he's going to be playing. I'll try to look it up in the meantime. Waddle's been out for a little bit. So,
yeah.
Yes, it's still important to get these joint training camp matchups and battles. Let's see. Cameron Wolf says, Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill is the latest player dealing with a minor injury. Oh, yeah, you're right. It's, hand.
I think they said he had some kind of brace on it or something like that and was not catching passes today.
Yeah, hand injury. So, yeah, odds are we're not going to see Tyreek Hill. No Jalen Waddle either because he's been out for a little bit. However, there's been a lot of discussion about Tua and what he said about his old coach. There he is with his current coach. And I also think the Dolphins' run game is going to be something to watch because the Dolphins' offense is a little bit of like what Tampa Bay is trying to implement, obviously, with Liam Cohen coming from the Rams style of offense. And Sean McVay, the Rams coach, has the relationship with the Dolphins head coach as well, Mike McDaniel. This has been the style of offense, that has given the Bucs fits in recent years with San Francisco and LA. We know the Bucs are great at stopping the run, but I think this is a huge matchup to watch in training camp practice tomorrow, even with the fact of, that a lot of the wide receivers might be out.
Yeah, and I mean, this Dolphins backfield is at least four guys deep. I mean, think about Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane was the rookie last year, had a really good year. A rookie this year, Jalen Wright, I believe he was from Tennessee. And then even their number 4 is Jeff Wilson, who, had kind of had a few games where he was like the highlight for the 49ers, and the 49ers before they had McCaffrey seemed to have a running back hurt every single week. But that's 4 solid running backs that the Bucs are going to see in practice tomorrow and in the game on Friday. So yeah, it's going to be a good on good because the Bucs run defense is good. Maybe contrary to what they showed a little bit on Saturday night in Jacksonville, but they've got a good run defense and this is a good rushing offense and a good, like you said, a good style of offense to test this Buccaneer defense.
And then of course the Bucs offense and Miami's defense. I think we all want to see Baker Mayfield against Jalen Ramsey. Trash talk versus trash talk. KJ Britt likes to trash talk as well. But I don't know. I mean, I know Miami, they tried to boost up their pass rush for sure. By the way, Odell Beckham not going to be participating either. But they tried to boost it up with their pass rush.
Jonnu Smith, they also added on offense too, a tight end.
Yeah. Jalen Ramsey at corner. I don't know. There's something about the Dolphins defense that isn't like overly menacing to me.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at kind of their depth chart right now on ESPN's website, and I know this is probably based off of maybe their last game and some of the game statuses they had, but a lot of injuries right now with them too. It's like Bradley Chubb, is one of their guys on the outside.
Yeah, that was one of the big ones.
He's dealt with an injury. Jordan Poyer, I know that is another guy who I think has been a little bit banged up. They've got a few good guys here and there. Duke Riley is the inside linebacker who I think was a Falcon for a little bit there, formerly with LSU. They added Chop Robinson in the draft. A guy that I know a lot of Bucs fans, did or didn't want during the draft process. We'll see him. But yeah, it's not one of those, like, I don't look at the Dolphins defense and like, oh, that's going to be a scary defense. I think that's kind of a work in progress, and, they'll have to stay healthy. They did, Calais Campbell's another one. Calais Campbell is another one who I forgot is a Dolphin, honestly. It's one of those things where there's so many moves happen in the offseason and faces are switching to new teams. But yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't think the best defense in the NFL, but there are some pretty good players on it. It's just, we'll see how it kind of plays out as a unit.
Shout out to Part of My Take. What was the bit they did this week? Old faces, new places.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But, Calais Campbell, even though he's been in the league for a very long time, that's good for Graham Barton and Cody Mauch for sure, going up against someone like him. Also, there's going to be a little bit of familiarity. Thank you to McCoy Shedden for this $1.99 super chat, who said high school opponents Elijah Klein and Jalen Phillips in joint practice. Yeah, Elijah Klein went to Upland High School. I did not know that Jalen Phillips went there as well to Cali Bros. Going to be chopping it up. No pun intended to Chop Robinson, but two Cali Bros. We'll face against each other. I don't think Klein's really going to get much tackle work. I think that was kind of a last second situation that he needed to play. But yeah, still will be very cool to see those guys go up against each other in the Bucs O-line and the D-line. So joint training camp practice tomorrow, very exciting. Starts at 10 o'clock, so a little bit later than these 8:30 practices that have been going on. But you can go on pewterreport.com. We'll make sure we have it all covered. For the preseason game itself, Bailey, on Friday, anything in particular that you want to watch that you're excited to pay attention to?
Just make sure there's no injuries is my big thing that I want to see on Friday night. But I think some of these like into the roster, bubble battles are going to be interesting to watch. Cody Thompson's the guy we talked to today. I think he's probably the favorite right now to earn one of those last receiver spots. But if we see Cameron Johnson make his debut, I think that would be an exciting thing to watch, and maybe he can make a late push to latch onto the roster. More of the outside linebacker competition. A lot of the competition's kind of coming to an end and wrapping up with this last little test on Friday night. That's going to be the excitement. I think it's also going to be exciting to be back at Raymond James Stadium for the first time in about, I guess it'd be 7 months. So yeah, good to be back and ready to kind of wrap up the preseason and get on to the real thing.
No doubt about it. I'm going to be looking at third down efficiency. I mean, offensively, the Bucs are terrible at it, and defensively, they couldn't get off the field on 3rd and 17. So, who in the secondary ends up making a play? Because was it Casey Rogers calling the plays and not really knowing the secondary, or was it the secondary just not showing up? I think that's something to really pay attention to. One last super chat before we wrap up the show. Thank you to CatBuck88. for this $2 super chat, who kindly says, no question, just excited to catch you guys live. Thank you so much, CatBuck88. That's very kind of you to say. You've been great on social media as well with our Instagram. Thank you so much for all of your support, and we appreciate the kind words so much. McCoy also says, caught 2 lives in a row. Love it. We love that as well. Thank you very much, McCoy Shedden. For all of that. So just a reminder for everybody, tomorrow's show, we have Assistant General Manager John Spytek joining us. We'll talk Bucs-Dolphins, what he saw from practice tomorrow, and of course, talk about the roster and some roster cuts and All that stuff and his views on the team heading into the season. If you want to support Pewter Report further, you can be a YouTube channel member. We have a couple of different levels: Pewter People, Pewter Pro, Pewter Premier, and Pewter Platinum. Each one has some special benefits to being, the higher the member that it goes. And by the way, for those that enjoyed our live Q&A exclusive to Premier and Platinum members that comes out on Friday, we had our first one last Friday. Make sure you turn on your notifications. And it will let you know when we are going live. So just a heads up for everybody on that front as well. And of course, for everybody, if you're not already doing so, please make sure you follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. So please like and subscribe, leave a comment. We got a ton of stuff on our social media from the press conferences today. We'll have a lot from Bucs-Dolphins tomorrow as well. So, yeah, please leave a comment. We're trying to grow our YouTube channel as much as we can. You guys have been fantastic with that. So leave a comment below after this. And that's going to do it for us on today's show. For Bailey Adams, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. with John Spytek for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Peace out.
Out.
Bye-bye. Later.